In this whole massive global conversation we're having about AI, we talk a lot about the risks and rewards, we talk about safety and ethics, and just how powerful it's getting. But it turns out we're almost completely ignoring one of the most critical variables in the entire equation: speed.
Okay, let's just dive right into the heart of the problem. This image shows it perfectly. See these two lines? That red one shooting for the sky? That's technology. It's on an exponential curve, getting faster and faster and faster. But that blue line, the one that's just kind of trudging along, that's us. That's our social adaptation, our laws, our jobs, our schools. We adapt at a slow, linear pace. And that huge, widening gap between them, well, that's the risk zone, and it is getting bigger every single day.
And here's a closer look at that mismatch. On the left, you've got the tech tempo. Think algorithm updates, scaling up data, deploying servers, stuff that happens at lightning speed. And on the right, you have our social tempo, which is why we're so slow to adapt. I mean, think about it. Changing a school curriculum, passing a new law, shifting a cultural norm. These things take years, sometimes even decades. That gap between the two is where all the friction happens.
So here's the really crucial point. We are trying to govern AI. We're asking all these important questions. Is it safe? Is it biased? Is it getting way too powerful? But the one variable that might have the biggest impact of all, deployment speed, or how fast is too fast, is completely ungoverned. We've just left it up to the market, to a race where the social cost of moving at warp speed is basically just an afterthought.
All right, so if speed is the missing variable, how do we even begin to get a handle on it? Well, the source material we're looking at proposes a brand new framework, kind of like a map, really, to help us navigate this whole challenge by thinking about the tempo of innovation on purpose.
This whole framework is built on asking three really key questions. First, what's the public good? In other words, who actually benefits from this new AI, and how badly do we need it? Second, what's the social resilience? How fast can the people and communities most affected by this change realistically adapt? And third, a really interesting one, what's the identity disruption? Are we automating away the very skills and career paths that we need to create our future experts?
Okay, now here's where it gets super practical. If you take just those first two dimensions, public good and social resilience, the framework gives us this amazing tool, an AI deployment speedometer. It's basically a simple chart that creates 4 different terrains. And depending on which box a new AI technology lands in, well, that tells us we need a completely different approach to how fast we roll it out.
So, let's start in the top right corner. This is the public priority terrain. This is for AI that has a super high public good. Think AI for discovering new drugs or for predicting wildfires. In these cases, the risk of not deploying the AI is actually way bigger than the risk of deploying it. The goal here isn't to slow down, it's to hit the accelerator, but with the right guardrails in place, because speed here can literally save lives.
Now, let's jump to the total opposite corner, the social crisis terrain. This is where the public good is pretty low. It's mostly about a company's bottom line, and the ability of workers to adapt is also low. A classic example? The super fast rollout of self-checkouts in grocery stores. This creates what the source calls cliff-edge displacement, where tons of jobs vanish almost overnight. Here, we absolutely need to pump the brakes and actively manage the pace of change.
Then, you've got the human-centric terrain. This is for AI that has a high public good, but it's used in jobs that really depend on human care and judgment. So the goal isn't replacement, it's augmentation. A perfect example is using AI in elderly care. Maybe it helps predict falls or manages medication schedules, which reduces caregiver burnout but keeps that essential human-to-human connection right at the center of it all.
But there's this hidden cost to moving too fast, and it actually cuts across all of those other areas. And this brings us back to that third dimension we talked about, identity disruption. It reveals this really subtle but pretty profound danger of speed, the slow erosion of our own expertise. This image of a temple just visualizes the problem perfectly. It's a concept called knowledge debt. So think of expertise like this temple. It's built on a solid foundation of all those junior entry-level tasks, the drudgery. But what happens when we automate that entire foundational layer just to be more efficient? Well, we remove the very building blocks of learning. The whole structure gets shaky because we can no longer create the senior experts we need at the top.
And the core insight is just this simple. If juniors don't do the basics, they never become the experts of tomorrow. It's a really straightforward idea, but when you think about it, it has massive implications for the future of pretty much every profession.
And listen, this is not some abstract theory. It's happening right now. Think about a junior programmer who uses a tool like GitHub Copilot to just spit out code without ever really learning the logic behind it. Or think about automated journalism that writes up basic company earnings reports, which prevents young reporters from doing that foundational work where they build their investigative instincts. We are racking up knowledge debt as we speak.
Okay, so we've got the problem, and we've got a framework to help us diagnose it. But what's the actual tool we can use to fix it? Well, the source proposes this really clever mechanism. It's not designed to stop innovation, but just to manage its tempo, and it's called the temporal toll.
So let's be super clear about what this thing is. The temporal toll is not a tax. It's not about raising money for the government. It is not a ban on automation. It is a behavioral pacing mechanism. That's it. Its one and only purpose is to help align the speed of an AI rollout with a particular industry's actual demonstrated ability to handle that change.
I think the best way to get it is with this awesome valve metaphor. You've got all this pressure from innovation pushing in. The temporal toll acts like a valve on a pipe. It doesn't stop the flow. It just regulates the speed of the output so it matches what society can actually absorb. Things like reemployment rates or how many people can get retrained. It creates a system where a planned, phased rollout is simply cheaper than a sudden disruptive shock.
So here's how it would actually work, in a simple 3-step process. First, there's a trigger. The toll only kicks in when a technology is rolling out way faster than an industry can adapt. Second, there's measurement. And that capacity to adapt, it's measured using real-world data, like how fast are displaced workers actually finding new jobs. And finally, the incentive. The toll is designed so that it's just more cost-effective for a company to plan a smooth phased transition, rather than cause a huge sudden disruption.
And this all brings us to the big takeaway here. For way too long, we've basically treated the speed of technology like it's the weather, some uncontrollable force of nature that we just have to react to. But it's not. Speed is a choice. It's a policy choice.
And really, this is the ultimate goal. As the source material says so well, governing AI speed is not about slowing progress, but about synchronizing innovation with human and institutional adaptation. It's all about making sure these incredible technological leaps don't end up breaking the very society they're supposed to be helping.
And that leaves all of us with this final and pretty urgent question. The speedometer has been designed, the tools are being thought through, but can we as a society actually build the institutions capable of using them before the next massive wave of disruption hits? The clock is ticking.